to the Board of Supervisors for preliminary approval of the development, phase 2 of its development.
And just real quick, is final and tentative an option together, or do they have to be separated in the township?
It's a good question. I'm not sure how it's been done in the
I
past.
think
That's
it's
the
something
problem.
that's discussed before you, or when you turn your application in, or before you turn it in. It would be something that would come through this office, the zoning.
Yeah, I mean, our understanding with, I mean, no, they're not here with
Right.
Hirschman was, hey, we've reviewed everything for years, you have this minor process to go through.
Yeah, so we kind of looked at it as the land development plans were approved, 2 years ago? And we're just getting the subdivision plat, all the administrative stuff to represent what was approved with the 17 lots. So we can record this and we'll be able to close on the homes that we're gonna start building. This is the first time I've ever done it like this.
Yeah, I mean, typically when we, if everything was just, I guess, business as usual, we go through, and take it back through the process, but there wouldn't be a lot of process to it because everything was already done in the past. And I get that there's different players, a whole different environment, so it confuses it.
PJ, what is the difference between the preliminary and the final? Are they major items?
Pardon me as I find the appropriate section of the ordinance here. So code section 24-25 is preliminary. It's mostly general information, and a lot of it's the same under final. The final plan application content requires, street plan and profile, and it sounds like a lot of this was already reviewed and approved by the township. Typically we would just see that all come in under the same application: performance bond, amenities bond. There's 18 or 19 things in this ordinance here for plan requirements.
Is there a difference in the signatures that go on the preliminary and the?
I don't believe there's any difference in signatures.
Yeah.
I think the signatures are typical.
Yeah, the declaration should be the same,
Yeah.
and all the items in there are actually, mostly constructed at this point.
Right.
The plan approved houses were approved, they're constructed, storms constructed.
It's mostly administrative differences typically. I don't have a ton of working experience with your ordinance specifically to know the exact differences between preliminary and final, but
So,
what
so what could happen is, again, this is just a recommending body. It doesn't, ultimately at the end of the day, it's the Board of Supervisors who determine what of the recommendation they want to accept. You could make a motion to recommend it for tentative and final PRD approval. It will then go to the Board of Supervisors, and the Board of Supervisors will take everything under advisement, and then they will make a determination if they want to accept this preliminarily, or if they want to accept it preliminary and final. That way, there's no need to come back here. It'll be up to the Board of Supervisors. But if they decide to only accept it preliminarily, then it will have to come back here, and you'll have to consider it for final approval. But again, because this is you're not making really any final decisions here. You're just recommending to the Board of Supervisors what you think would be appropriate here.
And our office represents other clients that do it combined at one time, preliminary / final. In my experience, and in an effort to be as conservative as possible, unless it's clearly labeled as preliminary / final, if we're seeing it for the first time, I'm going to consider it preliminary, not preliminary / final. So, that's up to the board for consideration.
In this review application, it says check appropriate type of plan submission. It says final plan. I was just looking through to see what.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not property line shift. It's not preliminary plan. Please check appropriate. It's the third page already, but it says final plan. So I'm trying to just look through if it was indicated as such
Good point. Yeah.
or anything. So it should be reviewed as a final plan with all of the final aspects that are in our ordinance. And, you know, we're all here saying that we make the assumption that, you know, the old set of engineers did do that and go through it as a final.
Yeah, their letter was issued on December 22nd, 2022.
Did Sean say anything like about I thought he said, in his recommendation letter, like to verify escrow, and there was another thing I thought.
The only comment I knew from Sean was one of the declarations had a date of like 2020, and at that point he
Yes.
commented maybe 2022.
We said, we recommend that the township, so this would have to be done by the township, verify that, the
Escrow.
applicant is current on all escrow accounts and has proper security and agreements in place for phase 2. Sequestered account agreement, that it says Mr. Makel's office was in review.
And,
It's been approved.
Yeah, that was approved.
yeah,
Then, I guess, then that's, you know, if this was submitted as final, then we should be voting and moving it forward as final.
The only thing that I'm gonna say with that, and just to make sure everything's right, on your application it says 21, residential subdivision, number of lots, units 21, but you're saying it's 17.
Yes,
Just
that'll
so-
be right. Page further. This one. It's the same letter that just says,
Yeah.
17 single family lots and 1 condo.
No, the meets and bounds for it are for the 17 single families. You follow it around, TJ.
Is that number mentioned in the review, Harshman?
I don't believe so.
I don't see it on the email, but I'm seeing letter.
Sean writes, the
Sean.
plan proposes the re-subdivision of the existing residual parcel number 1-R of phase 1 plan and subdividing it into 17 single unit lots, multi-unit parcels, number 1-R1 and R2 and so on, so. Looks like in Sean's letter,
It says
It
17
says
lots
17.
plus 1, 2, 3, 4.
For a multi-unit,
Right. 1R1, 1R2.
which would be 21.
Right, it would be 21, which is max number.
So that would be, I mean, other than, so we can make sure it's right, that would be the only question at this point.
R1 is there, R2 is there, 3 and 4, so
Well, I think, or what he could be saying is we're creating the 17 and we're leaving the 1 remaining large tract.
No.
Because we're not subdividing it. So we're essentially taking this out of a piece that was remaining.
Okay, so he shows on the parcel here, I see 1R1, 1R2, 1R3,
which is residual.
and 1R4.
That's just from when we
So
initially
it's-
broke it up.
So I think essentially what it's doing, it's creating the 17 lots and it's changing the size of those other parcels.
And those other
That sounds
parcels.
right.
Not creating new parcels.
Okay.
So I'm sure Tony worked with Sean on how he wanted it worded.
So in our decision, we can just say 17.
make a motion to recommend tentative and final PRD approval for phase 2 for the 17 residential units,
Single family.
Single.
single family
family.
units.
Make recommendation to supervisors. Give it to me again.
Make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors for tentative and final PRD approval of the phase 2 development for 17 single-family units.
This phase, in theory, is not developing as much as it could. acreage wise, because they're saying there's only 17, and then there's an additional part of this phase, apparently has to be transferred to another phase.
That's how.
Each phase will be
Right, so then,
17 lots.
what is not used in this existing phase
They should develop in the future.
has to be carried over into the next phase.
There are three phases, right?
Yes, that's correct.
This is just the.
All right. You started this off, and you're not gonna be able to
What
remove
you
it.
want. It apparently
Okay.
encompasses the larger
It's fine.
area.
I make a motion.
Whatever
But
that-
that,
I
and that would transfer to the next
I make a
phase.
motion that we recommend
More-
to the board of supervisors
More acres.
that we,
for,
for preliminary and final, phase 2 development for 17 single-family units.
sound right.
Is approval in there?
Yes, approval's in there.
Okay. Then that's, yes, that's good. We have a motion on the table.
One second.
Any discussion?
Roll call, Heather,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Lori, yes, John,
I missed some of the meetings, so I'm gonna abstain from
Abstain.
it.